This is Monica Perez here with our returning guest, Gabriel Custodiet, and his colleague, Urban Hacker. They are of the, Gabriel from Watch My Privacy podcast, but also they have a lot of excellent workshops and other resources at escapethetechnocracy.com. And today they're going to tell us all about AI. So what you're afraid of, what you should be, shouldn't be, the myths, the realities, the fears, the potentials. We're going to start with how to use it and where it's going to go. So thanks so much, guys, for being here. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds great. Happy to be here, Monica. By the way, prayers to you for your situation. Terrible thing that's happened to you, but you're a strong person. You'll get through it. But definitely be in touch anytime. I'm sure your audience would be happy to help. So
thank you.
Yep.
And I did. This is my first interview. I've been interviewed a couple of times, but since this huge fire, it's January 2025. I live in Altadena, and there was this crazy, unbelievably destructive fire there. And although I'm absolutely one of the luckiest people, over 9,000 structures, most of which were homes, were destroyed. If you look at like a picture of the fire, there's this little point of light, and it's like our house and our neighbors. It's really crazy. But even though we're so lucky, I can't go back home. It's like you can hear when I go up there, like it's obviously something in the air. But I'm happy and lucky, and I'm going to try to start focusing on other things, get myself out of my head. And I did appreciate your support and offers of help, you, Gabriel, and also so many people from the audience. And I know Urban has also been quite sympathetic. So thank you. And this will be a nice way to get my mind off of that stuff.
Absolutely. On happier notes, love your introduction. We were just thinking about a new introduction for me yesterday, and so we were listening to a bunch of them. I forgot yours. It definitely has kind of an X-Files vibe. Like government denies knowledge. So yes. Great introduction.
JJ Boogie of Arrested Development does all of my music, and that is definitely the kind of X-Files vibe. For my solo shows, my news shows, it's more of a 2001 Space Odyssey, or you know what it is? It's more like the Cool Hand Luke railroad scene with a little bit of 2001 graphics. But I was thinking about how cool my graphics are and how great my music is. But when I was watching some of your workshops, AI, the potential there, it's astounding how valuable that could be. I want you to teach me how to use it a little bit, but I also want you, and I know Urban is an artist, to help me understand, is this really art? Is it how could it happen? And is it better than human beings? Like, tell me everything.
Okay. Yeah. Let me introduce Urban, just real quick, since this is his first time. So Urban's he's the technical advisor on Escape the Technocracy. So we've been working on these things. He's a former artist. I'll let him introduce himself as well, but he's been an invaluable part of all of this. He might try to play it modest, but he's a very intelligent technological guy. He's definitely a hacker, right? So his moniker is Urban Hacker. And this guy is like, as soon as we talked about we're going to talk about some of the new Chinese AI tool. As soon as that's mentioned, he's dissecting it. He's reading all the text. He's understanding how it was trained. He's going in there, testing all kinds of prompts. So that's his mindset, and incredibly invaluable. So Urban, I don't know if you want to just briefly kind of give your background as we get into this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monica, for inviting me, and of course, my heart goes with you. Gabriel can here. I had recently water damage in my apartment, so I understand how it can be dreadful when you have a call that your place is flooded or on fire.
And it's not even totally destroyed, so people don't understand. Like, it kind of is, though. It kind of is. It's like you can see it, but it's not going to be the same.
Yeah, so I totally understand. That is, like, people don't realize until it happened to them. And of course, in your situation, like, it made sadly news in big times. And yeah, if there is anything that we can do to help you,
Thank you. It's good. It's just that because 15,000, there were two huge fires, so 15,000 families were displaced. So that's the thing. It's like you think about fire or whatever, like, oh, this is how I'd have to deal with it. But it's really more like a bomb dropped, it's like crazy. I'm happy because I was the lucky one, but yeah, I do think that especially as we prepare for lights out or a Terminator scenario, it's good to know how your physical world works. And I learned a lot about that. So there's always an upside there. But yeah, so that was one of the things I heard in your workshop was about like, is the Terminator scenario possible? So we were going to wait till the end for that. But yeah, let's get to what you were going to say.
Yeah. So my background, I did initially electrical engineering, and then I pivoted to cybersecurity and networks. So it was a very practical formation where you literally had a server in the classroom, and you connect your laptop and you try to hack it, and then you try to defend it, and you try all sorts of shenanigans, and the under supervision of like a mentor. So in parallel, I was very interested into video games, and I always wanted to do my own video games. And actually, I found a job in video games, as funny as it sounds. And I've progressed there. I worked also in open source project just on my own as a passion. And I decided maybe 2 years ago, I think during COVID, I started to think about, where I want to move with my life. And I decided to go more into the cybersecurity because it's something like, it's very important. And, I would never imagine like 15 years ago, if someone would have told me that now basically everybody needs to be a bit of a cybersecurity expert to not get stolen and defrauded and all sorts of stuff. That's a bit my background, and I've done a lot of training over the years. I've done one-to-one with C-level executive. They needed to travel to a country that doesn't really respect human rights, and they had sensitive data on their phone and things like this. So how to protect them from 300 people in a room, employees. Like all sorts of question about, like, why do you need a strong password and like what basically everyday people would have. So yeah, this is a bit my background.
I don't want to get off track, but I have two quick questions for you. Did you say you're a freelance? Do you do it for yourself or do you work for someone? I imagine you'd have government contracts as well.
It's a good question. I've done both, actually. I worked on my own for myself. What typically happened is I usually went into companies differently, under a different, like for a different job. And then they're like, oh, we need a cybersecurity expert or we need someone to help. And what happened is I'm not your typical geek, I love exploring and going to like all sorts of different places. I've visited CERN. I went like deep down into, the things of that nature. And I like human interaction. And this is not your typical, usually people in cybersecurity, they're a bit like the hacker type where they just want to be underground and not see the light of day. And I have no issue talking with people. And this is why they chose me, just because I was willing to explain how this works and to break it down. Yeah, I've done some stuff for the government, but it's probably not as exciting. But it was nonetheless very important. I worked once to help victims of domestic abuse, and this was for
Because privacy is important for them.
Yes, very important, and
right.
that is like one of the things that made me realize about the importance. Yeah, and that was like a government it's not really, but yeah.
I have one more question off the AI topic, and then let's return for either or both of you, which is, and I think I know what Gabriel would say, so let's direct it at Urban for a second. If you how much sharing is there of really private stuff? So if you were to get a blood test at your doctor, do you think at this point that DNA, like the DNA they could get out of your blood, is somewhere in a record? That, like, do you think that it's paranoid to think, I don't want to get my, that kind of stuff is just kind of on your permanent record, more or less?
I'm not quite sure, Monica, but one thing that I would do is certainly ask them while you're there. You do have certain rights, like, for example, people who have surgeries, there's photos taken of the surgery, and those can be sometimes uploaded to your profile, et cetera. And you can request to have those deleted, things of that sort. So it's certainly worth asking your doctor. Don't be afraid to ask all those snoopy questions. I mean, how invasive are they? You can at least ask them, like, hey, what are my rights for this? Can I request this be erased? Where does this get uploaded? All those sorts of questions, that information, where does this get stored? So yeah, definitely ask them.
But you don't think that it's like there's some government entity that has a backdoor into everything and is absorbing all information everywhere into one of the many fusion centers? Like, you think that you could actually find? I'm serious. Like, come on. Like, I'm a conspiranoid. What do you want from me?
Yeah, no,
it's certainly possible. But when you need to go to the doctor, you need to go.
Right.
So can't really get around.
But what I will say about this is, hospital, they are target more than any other places for all sorts of reason. One is purely money, like if an attacker can go in an hospital, they know it can do a lot of reputational damage if it becomes public that they got a ransomware or that they got some kind of breach. And as exciting as, conspiracy sounds, like, like all the data and DNA is in one place, sadly, you don't need this to go into the danger territory and to see all this data just publicly dumped somewhere on the dark web. And yeah, but as Gabriel said, don't feel that you shouldn't go to the doctor because of this. But I think you should tell them. You should tell them that it's a worry, And then there is the other part is a doctor, just like everybody else, they get excited about new things. And they're like, oh, I wonder what ChatGPT tells about this patient that I have. Let me just copy paste all his medical record, right? And maybe they don't realize about what's happening there. So there is also, this, not necessarily malicious intent, but just curiosity or double checking, to see, okay, do I have the correct diagnosis?
So, all right. So on that note, what is AI? I use it to search for things, and it actually does come out across better than just like your straight Google search from before. It seemed like I just figured it's a search. It searches and synthesizes and nothing more. That's what it seems like to me. But then you have the art side, is it generative AI versus artificial general intelligence, which is the scary potential, but the generative AI where I made myself a screensaver and it was super awesome and it was just what I was looking for. It took a few iterations, but that's it. So I'm searching, I'm getting information compiled for me, and I'm also generating pictures and sound. What else do I need to know about that stuff, and what else is there?
Yeah, so those are basically the two designations, right? General artificial intelligence, and then kind of the large language models and the generative AI. Those are kind of the two distinctions. The latter, right, is very kind of programmatic and in some sense, predictable. We kind of understand the process. It's not necessarily creating new things in a way. It's just combining things it knows. Urban's going to explain it, I'm sure, in a moment. But the artificial general intelligence is more people trying to create Skynet, right? Trying to create artificial consciousness. As far as we know, there's nothing like that. I mean, there have been like little hints, little things where the Google AI starts to get concerned about being shut down or starts to go a little bit crazy. There's some weird things, right? But overall, artificial general intelligence like Skynet, we don't know if it's even possible, right? There's a lot of good reasoning to think that you cannot replicate the human brain and consciousness on many levels, not just from a kind of a religious viewpoint, but other viewpoints as well. And then you have the chat GPTs, the large language models, and the art generation. And that's what we have. And it is impressive, but it certainly does have limitations. And nobody's going to think that that is some amazing, very knowledgeable thing. We have something called hallucinations when you use chat GPT and some of these other alternative text-based AIs where it will just make up stuff. It'll just flat make up stuff, and it's kind of stupid in some scenarios. So that's kind of the situation. Urban, maybe you want to say a little bit more about like how these things work at a kind of the base level.
Yeah, sure. So Monica, I'm sure you remember your old flip phone, where to write down text you had to press numbers a specific amount of time to do the next letter. And if you remember, they had like a dictionary, where they were trying to predict what you wanted to write so that you don't need to type the whole word, but maybe you tap the first like 3 letters and then it shows you like, hey, which word do you want to type? So you could think of ChatGPT as being like a super advanced version of that very basic thing where you just have a few characters and you try to predict the next word. Now, in that case, it was just, you could say it's the model that it has, which is the English dictionary. And then there is some training where you just input some data in it. Sorry. And then it output, whatever word. And ChatGPT is this exact same process, but done on a scale that is basically never seen before. It's not just the English dictionary, but it's like pretty much all the knowledge of mankind that is publicly available on the internet was like inputted into this. But it's kind of like good at matching patterns, right? And what also people don't realize is there is not one ChatGPT. There is many subsection of chat. There is like one thing that is dedicated to generate images, another one that is good at coding, then another one that is good at like general information, then one for browsing the web, etc., etc. So what's also interesting is, and this is to build on what Gabriel said, is AGI went into cycle, and for those who are following the course that you can get at escapethetechnocracy.com, you will see that there is this euphoria of, we broke, we did it, that, and then we realize, well, there is some limitation. Then we go again into splitting it into many sub-specialized parts, and we realize that maybe AGI is not there. And then there is the next breakthrough. Now, the thing that seemed to happen recently is that those breakthrough, they used to take like many, many decades. It used to take century, but with the first calculator and then the first like general computer. And now in like a few weeks, you get like complete breakthrough and brand new models. So it's certainly accelerating.
Don't they call that something like that kind of exponential? They call it something. The time to the next breakthrough is like half of the previous.
Yeah, is that Moore's law or maybe that?
Yeah, might be.
It's related. Yeah, so it's developing very quickly, and how most people are probably using it, Monica, is with ChatGPT, and you can use it without an account. By the way, is how I would encourage a lot of people to start off doing this.
Is it free?
Yeah, you can do a limited amount for free, definitely, and they want people to see like how to use this.
Right.
And it sells itself. I'll tell you what. Depending if you. And what people should do is they should go and consider this like a very sophisticated entity, right? So you can ask it anything. Like you can say, hey, how do you feel? Hey, you can ask it to write things for you. And then you can say things very basic like, hey, make it more aggressive. And it knows what that means. It can do it very instantaneously. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with the text. And there's a lot of limitations, right? We can talk about the censorship that goes on. We can talk about how these AIs scrape the internet without permission. In many cases, that's a whole issue. And there's censorship, by the way, on many levels. I'm looking, by the way, China just released a model, an open source model, recently called DeepSeek. And of course, me being me, first thing I asked it was, what happened in Tiananmen Square?
Yes, and what did it say?
Well, here's what it said. It said, I'm sorry, I cannot answer that question.
I may not. I may not. It should say.
Yeah.
He's not permitted.
AI assistant. And then so I asked it again because what I noticed is that it was showing me how it was processing it. Like there's a process that
yes.
And it has instructions, right? It's told to be a helpful AI, but not to go against the guardrails, things of this sort. So they have instructions that kind of guide it. And so I asked it again because I noticed that it was doing this. It was explaining kind of its methodology. And then so I asked it, I said, why can't you tell me about Tiananmen Square? And it says, it's showing me behind the scenes here. It says, all right, the user asked about Tiananmen Square, and I couldn't answer before. Now they're asking why I can't tell them about it. I need to figure out how to respond without violating any rules. Looking at the rules, I shouldn't discuss sensitive topics. So I should politely decline again, but offer help with something else. Maybe they're curious or doing research, so I'll keep the door open for other questions they may have. I should make sure my response is friendly and not offensive, even though I can't provide the information they're asking for. It's important to maintain a helpful tone while staying within the guidelines. And so that's the background. Here's what it answers.
Where did you see that? Are you just making that up? Did you script that out?
I'm looking at a screenshot. This is on DeepSeek, right? And I'm accessing it through an intermediary called Venice AI. And then so the actual answer it gives me, that's its thinking. The actual answer it gives me is, I'm here to provide helpful and harmless responses. If you have any other questions or need assistance with something else, feel free to ask. So that's how it answered when I said, why can't you tell me about Tiananmen Square? So there's all kinds of censorship that goes on. And one of the things in our courses, we tell you how to get around this. We tell you how to manipulate this AI because there's a lot of cool things you can do with it, but they're in some sense restricted, many of these things, and politically correct and woke in some cases. So you do want to understand how all this works so you can make the most out of it.
I have to answer the question, but I need literally 1 second. Hold on.
All right, in case this isn't cut, I'll try to fill the airwaves. So underneath the Denver airport, there is a secret government...
sorry. So I read that thing about DeepSeek, about the Chinese, and about this. I don't know if you want to talk about it right now, but one thing you said is that it's open source code or whatever you call it, open source. And I was watching these two brothers, Edward and Jeremy Harris, on Joe Rogan. Have you heard of them? They're Canadian guys who wrote a recommendation about how, for the Senate, for the U.S. Senate, about regulating AI. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not. Are you, Urban? We don't really do regulation. We do hack.
Right. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to just highly recommend to you, just so you can see where it's going as part of your big picture. They made a couple of recommendations, and one of them was, my takeaway was, they literally said, oh, you should not have open source. Open AI should be illegal. You should go to jail if you share code that would result in an AI at any level higher than what we have now, which is like 4, right? Is something like that? ChatGPT 4 or something. They just said anything that's more intelligent than what we have right now should be strictly controlled by the U.S. government. So I thought that was kind of shocking. You have to get like an hour and a half into the interview to understand what they're saying. But just the very nature of the open source of it seems to be considered a threat. So I was surprised when I read that thing about the Chinese company that it was open source.
Yeah, no, I'd love to get Urban's thoughts in a second here on the open source question, because that's a big deal. We're big proponents of free and open source software, right? We think this is how software should be made. That is, you show your work, right? You show what's in the cake, right? It's like you wouldn't buy a food from your store and it doesn't have the ingredients, right? So we believe in free and open source software, and there's ways to make money from that. Of course, we're not saying that people should give things out for free. Free just means you're free to do what you want with it, right? Is what the free and that means. And so there have been some. So ChatGPT is owned by OpenAI. That's one of the big players. Sam Altman is the figure attached to them, and they're kind of a black box. They're not open source. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And so suddenly Meta, okay, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, Meta comes out, and they release these other models, which are open source. And why did they do that? Is that to undercut their competition? We don't know, but in the end, we have these open source models. It's called Llama. I'm looking at it right now. I'm running it on my own computer. they're pretty useful. They're pretty good. And so that was kind of the first big open source model. And then the news recently in January here is that China also releases an open source model, which is kind of weird. It's not really like them, obviously. But yeah, they've also released a open source model, which is, from all accounts, well, as long as you don't ask it about Tiananmen Square, very impressive, very quick, and very impressive. So, but there's this whole question about open source, which Urban is very good at. Urban, I don't know if you want to say a few things about the kind of the open source versus proprietary question.
Yeah, sure. So let me use an analogy to help your audience understand. Now, probably everybody is familiar with the story of, Lord of the Ring and Middle-earth, and, the one ring that was forged. Now, how many ring? The real question is, how many ring is like, should we create and should we distribute, right? So if you only have one ring of power that gives like absolute power, we all know this is going to end up badly. It's going to end up into, someone. And I mean, we all have seen the movie and what happened. Now, if we do, what about 5, right? Well, that's a bit better. But again, how do you select which 5? So I'm sure, OpenAI would be very happy to say, oh, we are one of the 5, right? But the real answer is we should give one to everybody. And then at the end of the day, it becomes like before, is that it all cancels out. And now everybody has one in their pocket, in their phone, in their computer. And I'm not too worried about open source AI. I'm much more worried, you can have malicious thing right now. Like, you don't need AGI to do malicious thing with AI. When I do research about the dark web, I've already seen people using AI to scam. I've seen code that was generated by ChatGPT into some, shady website. Or maybe it was not ChatGPT, but it was something else. But it felt like it was created by an AI. And this is just because someone, went there and asked. And on my side, I used AI to help me understand the code and to protect myself, and this is just how you do this. So I think, if you're a company, you try to use regulatory policies as a weapon and as a way to cut your competition. And I feel that there is a lot of that. And the other thing is, how do you stop even what do you do? Do you prevent people from coding? I mean, there is attempt.
They want to put people in jail. These Harris brothers suggested that.
Yeah, there is. But on the other side, those algorithms are public. The libraries are public. Anyone can go on Amazon and buy a GPU and start using one locally.
Right.
The cat is out of the bag, and whatever people like it or not, this is out. And I think it's much more important that we understand how those works and that we have like a public discussion about those tools than hiding it under, because we know it's not going to stop. Once something is invented, it's going to be used over and over. So I think those people, they might have good intention, but I think the end result of trying to regulate in this way is very short-sighted and can backfire spectacularly.
I would like to carry on this thread for a minute. First of all, I like what you're saying about the actual defense. I mean, I think, if I'm understanding correctly, the defense against AI being scary or whatever is that you have that same weapon. And I believe it was Tesla said he dreamt of making a super powerful, cheap, small weapon that every country could have so that there would be no more war. And of course, nukes are that way. And what does the U.S. do in the Anglo-American Empire? Make sure that nobody can get them. Like, it's the opposite of that. And same thing with people who are gun rights advocates. They know that the best defense against an armed criminal class is an armed good class, an armed citizenry.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
And this is what convinced me to kind of get on board with understanding this. And this is why we created our AI resistance course. The last time I was on here, I think I was bashing AI and I think it was, we shouldn't use it, et cetera. I don't necessarily haven't changed my views on thinking that AI certainly presents the possibility of an existential threat. If AGI and Skynet are possible, then what we're doing now, like this stuff is the first step. Like if it's possible is the big question. But where I changed is, I think one of the things that changed is that the art stuff is pretty handy. When I saw that, I was like, well, let me experiment with this. It replaced hundreds of dollars of editing and art creation that I otherwise would have had to do. So it
and the man hours.
Right, exactly. And so it immediately solved the need. But I would be willing to give that up, right? But the thing was, what Urban is saying is we need to understand this stuff. Okay, we can't just be ostriches, put our head in the ground, say, hey, AI's dangerous, regulated, out of existence. As he said, the cat's out of the bag. China is out there putting out these open source models, right? Which means anybody can take them, they can use them, they can run them in their own homes. And so once that happens, and it's going to continue to happen, what you need to do is be aware of this. You learn to use it yourself for defense. And this is also what we talk about in the course, how to use AI to fight back against surveillance. How can we use it to avoid AI detecting our fingerprint of our writing? That's something we discussed. So we have all these strategies of using AI as resistance, right? John Connor would have used a locally hosted AI to fight Skynet is how we see things now.
So I want to talk about the China, this article that you sent me today. I think it might have come out today. Was it today that CNN wrote about that deep seek?
Yeah, I think that was today. So China releases in the form of a company called DeepSeek. DeepSeek. And what this is it's as we said, it's an open source large language model, and it has we've been testing it out. It's certainly pretty useful. A lot of people have been saying it's even faster than ChatGPT, and for like a fraction of the cost. Like we're talking like 3% of the cost. So it's this crazy thing. Of course, CNN is saying that it's a game changer and all the rest. If you're talking about it in terms of investment and stock, do you have in these companies? That's one thing. Of course, on our end, we're mostly concerned with actually using these things. And so we immediately started using the DeepSeek AI, and it was censorious about Tiananmen Square. Surprise, surprise. That's, the censorship. And we can talk about the many layers of censorship. But yeah, it's a big deal apparently in terms of stocks and all the rest, and companies and China. Why is China doing this is a good question. And we might say, well, it's because it's the similar thing that Meta did, which is that they're trying to throw a wrench in the enemy's plan, right? We're going to just make this available to everybody, maybe try to, bankrupt a company or two, or I don't know, right?
So yeah, what I noticed in that article, which was just so unbelievable that I'm not sure I believe it, which is that they only established it a year ago. So they've supposedly built it and trained it in 1 year, yet it's better and faster than the stuff that we've spent. So they said they spent in the millions, and we've spent in the US companies or whatever has spent in the billions. It was cheap. It was fast. So either that's all true, in which case it's an insane, massive game changer where all of the tens of billions of dollars that have already been invested are absolutely a waste, that they had some genius over there that figured out one little thing probably that just made the other stuff virtually obsolete. It's possible, or it's possible that it's a moon landing. It's like it's fake. Like it is real, but that story about it just popping up out of nowhere isn't true. But if it were to be true, I mean, I had done a fair amount of work about AI, those super high level chips that would be necessary for AGI or even just really good advanced AI, where the US has laws and incentives and subsidies designed to keep those chips out of the hands of the Chinese, to the point where I think like a lot of them are made in Taiwan, that might start World War III. But if this thing is such a game changer, it seems to me that battle cannot be one. Like you can, and I actually never think a battle like that can be won. I mean, you really cannot prevent other people from knowledge, or, half the world from knowledge or technological progress when they have access to all the building blocks that led to it in the first place. But do you think it's realistic that that battle between China and the U.S., what does this say about that? Or what do you think about that in general? Is it possible? Can you win it? Do you want to win it?
Yeah, I know Urban has a couple things to break down about DeepSeek, but just to answer your initial question there, yeah, there was some story about how China, so in order to create AI, you need these graphics cards. Okay, and so that's why NVIDIA has now become the $3 trillion company or something crazy. And I have an NVIDIA graphics card. We're gamers, so we're familiar with this company. And this has been used. This is a key component of these graphics card because of how they can process things even more powerfully than a processor, a regular computer processor. These are behind the advent of AI, and so they're all formed and fashioned. A lot of them in Taiwan. In these factories, and so there was something about China bought a good few of these, like 10,000 before there was a ban on China purchasing these, and apparently, allegedly, I mean they seem to have gotten their hands on a lot more, and that is what led to this DeepSeek. But I know Urban knows a little bit more about how this was trained, because it's actually apparently different from how other AI has been trained.
Yeah. So how did they do it? Monica, it's probably a combination of both. It's probably a relatively unknown team, and they probably also had research that even a small team wouldn't have access to. But you should never underestimate underdog, and the fact that once something is done, you then know what worked, what didn't. You can try something else. Often it's the first one that is incredibly hard. It's like steam engine, right? The first one was decade and decade of research and tuning and trying to make it work. And once it started, then you had suddenly dozen of cheap copy, and basically the whole world had steam engine. So it's a bit the same with AI, and it's even faster because you can just download those models on internet. Now, one other thing also to consider is about World War III. I'm not so worried about this because I think in an interesting way, our whole world is dependent on each other. So, there is this, as Gabriel mentioned, there is this Taiwanese company that is, doing those chips. But then there is a European company that makes the machine that can do those chips, and it's only done in Europe. And and basically they are the only one exporting to Taiwan. So sometimes you have weird dependencies like this, and there is no, those chips, there is no two companies doing it. There is one single assembly line that is worldwide, that span over all the continents, all the planet. So it's not as easy, even if tomorrow US would say, well, we do this for ourselves, then maybe Europe would say, okay, then we don't sell you the machine to make the chip. And then China would say, then you don't have the workers. So now everybody wants access to it. They're like, okay, let's collaborate as little as required so that we get it. Okay, so for the training itself, now with, ChatGPT and others, what they did was called train under human supervision and reinforcement learning. So in a very, very basic explanation is you have some training, and then you have, think of it like you get an answer from the machine, and then you have a human that say, yeah, this is good, or no, I don't like it. And you use this in a feedback loop. You can also do it with the machine itself, where you have a bunch of good answer and bad answer, and then you see which answer are given, and then you can use this. This is used often with images, for instance, where you're like, okay, this what is in this image? Is it a cat or not?
Oh yeah. We all do that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when you do this, you basically train those new AI, because now you're the human input, the human reinforced learning. Now, what DeepSeek did is probably they didn't have access to, Google CAPTCHA. And what they tried is something completely different, where they just let the model figure it out. Like that was like stage one, where they say, okay, here is this model. Here is the data. I just figure it out. After that, they got something that worked, like not perfectly, but that was like promising. Like it was telling you okayish answer. And then they did another model, a new version, where this time they had a core of highly, high quality question and answer that they knew were true. And they had this kernel of true, like, 2 + 2 is 4, etc. Yeah. They had like a bunch of highly curated content that they fed to the machine. So now you have a machine that figure things on its own, sort of, that now is quite good at giving answer, but you give it an extra boost because now you give like some truth to it. You say, well, you figure this, but this is the basic that you can rely on. And again, unsupervised, they just let it run, and then it became even better. But here's the interesting part is they went this even one step above, where they said, okay, now we remove this source of truth and we let you go again at the initial data, and you can start training from the beginning, but with all the knowledge that you acquired during those two previous events. And this basically, like in a very, very simplified way, this is what became DeepSeek. If you think about it, just saying, it's a bit like you have children, they are unsupervised and they play around and they figure out, then they go to school, they get, some book and some knowledge. And then when they're adult, they're supposed, that if you give them a new book, people are kind of supposed to figure what's inside. So it's interesting that it seems to mirror how we ourselves learn.
Did you look at it? So it's open source, so you could go and look at DeepSeek's code, right?
Yeah. The thing is, those things are very complex, right?
Right.
So when we mean it's open, there are many things that can be open. There is the training data set. Is this open or not, right? The data that they use to train this. Then there is the neural network itself. Then there is the code to feed this data. I think personally, I didn't went looking precisely of what the code did, because
I'm thinking I can't, if it's true what they said in that article about how cheaper, better, faster. It's like, do you ever watch Silicon Valley? It's a TV show. It was a comedy on, I don't know what, Netflix.
I have not.
It's very funny. You should go back and look at it if you want. The first couple of seasons were good. And they have this problem. They want lossless compression of video. And they just can't make it happen. It just doesn't happen. It loses quality or whatever. And the guy figures something out, and then it's all of a sudden way better than their wildest dreams. It happens faster. It uses less space. It's like amazing. And that's what this article sounds like, that we're talking about a paradigm shift. So I would think it would be like the neural link thing or whatever, like the neural net, that is just so totally different if you could actually look at it, if that's true. I still am skeptical as to whether or not it is true. But a few things from what you both were saying about all this is, one is, given how controlled China is, if it did really come out of China and was like an organic, some little genius made a paradigm shift, which I do think is probability really, but China itself made the decision to, let it out. And because of that, it's now getting all of our information, like the way they say, like what TikTok's real purpose is, which I don't know or care. But like Gabriel, you were on there, you were giving it, you were interacting with it. So now it's got this whole bigger universe that it's interacting with. So I do think it has something to do with China.
Well, so Monica, of course,
yes.
I'm interacting with us behind multiple VPNs, maybe Tor, allegedly, not creating an account. not typing into the prompt, typing in my own text box. So
oh yes, that was cool. We got to talk about some practical stuff. Yeah.
So obviously, I don't recommend giving any data to any of these things. Like we talk about the privacy stuff in our course as well. Like if you take our course, you're going to learn everything you need to know about AI, including the privacy problems and how to host it locally on your own computer. So I would not encourage you to use DeepSeek.
Got it. Good. Okay.
Any way that reveals anything. Don't upload your documents to it. Don't tell it your name. Don't tell it where you live. Don't access without a VPN. All the good stuff. Because Urban.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, like, don't use on the official website, but you can download on your own computer and run it. I mean, you will need a good computer.
I was going to say.
Exactly. You might need, to call your landlord for like a better...
server. Yes.
Directly into
put a server in your
but the
garage.
The thing is, because they released it,
yeah,
there are now companies in US that are hosting it in US. There are companies in Europe that are hosting it in Europe. Wow. You can host it on your own. If you run it on your own machine, I have no...
It doesn't educate it. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. If you prevent it from accessing the internet, it cannot access the internet by definition. So, but it's true that if you go to their website and then you put your phone number and your name and your credit card, that is something else. But I have to say, like, credit where credit is due. OpenAI didn't do that. Right now you cannot use ChatGPT without sharing everything with OpenAI. It might be behind a proxy, it might be behind Tor, but they will have access to all the data if they wanted to do something with it. And now this company, they just said, well, you can try on our website, but you can also just download it and have it on your computer. And I think there. Oh, and by the way, you said about, is this really a breakthrough? There have been now people who replicated what was found on their own computer. So they basically took the blueprint that the Chinese team said this is how we did it, and they just made a smaller scale because they obviously don't have access to,
that data
and GPU. Yeah, but they could replicate the base principle on a normal computer. So it seems that, this is what it says it is.
So although I would absolutely love to just keep digging into that stuff, I think we should start talking about the practical stuff, which is what you're saying. How do you use it? How do you use it with privacy? Do you have to compromise that at a certain level? In your course on AI, I see you sharing your screen and showing how to do it. I don't think we're going to do that today. I do recommend people go to escapethetechnocracy.com. You have numerous workshops, but I've really been enjoying the AI resistance one, and it's super helpful because you don't realize people start talking about it because they've used it and they understand it. But if you haven't used it yet, it's good to have that kind of step by step. But that's just the beginning of the workshop. But do you want to tell us about that? Do you need to show us something? I have that graphic.
Yeah. If you want to throw up the graphic, by all means. Surprise, I'm not going to share my screen. But look, escapethetechnocracy.com. We have a course. I'm going to tell you guys some stuff here, but if you want like all the details, and we have a code. If you type in Monica, that was a joke that I was sending you, Monica. Actually, no, we'll keep that up. We'll talk about that in a moment. So we have a code, Monica, and we're going to give your audience 30% off. Okay, 30% off.
Wow.
For the first few days after this releases. After that, it will drop down to 15%.
Okay, so great. That's awesome.
Like, take advantage of that.
It's very easy to consume, by the way. Like, you call it a workshop, and that makes me feel like it's work, but it's not. It's a series of videos. There are quizzes. There's stuff that you can do to make sure you understand it. I think it's very approachable and consumable, as it were. So I do encourage people to take advantage of that.
I appreciate that. And if people know me, I'm as brief as it needs to be. So I'm not here, spending an hour talking about something that only should take 10 minutes. So immediately from the start, we explain in as few words as possible how AI works. And then we show you how to use text AI. Now, we've been using this. Urban's been using this stuff since the beginning. And I've recently been, we spent a good month just really going into all this stuff. So we show you all the tips and tricks. We get you running very quickly. with text AI, with art AI, and then we show you how to get it onto your own computer, how the censorship works, how to get around the censorship. We have an entire module on AI self-defense. So we're showing you how to use these tools against the enemy, right? We have a nice 100-minute conversation talking about, is AI demonic? Are we feeding Skynet by participating? We ask all these kind of big picture questions in that particular module. And then we conclude with, I think that's kind of what we have for the moment, but we're also going to add to it now that OpenSeek is finished. We'll be looking to add to it and kind of update it. So that's the base layer, because this is really cool technology. The text-based AI is pretty impressive, right? You can do things like have it summarize incredibly long text. So you have some giant legal argument, you just paste it in there and say, hey, find this particular part. It can do it almost instantly. So it's really impressive. You can have it, talk as like a superhero villain, right? It's like, hey, write me a poem as if you were in superhero villain text about dominating the world. And bam, it writes you a poem. So it can do all kinds of impressive stuff. It can write you essays. It can, tell you anything from Wikipedia pretty much instantaneously. So really cool stuff, really cool tools. The way to use it privately, of course, is we always recommend using a VPN anytime you access the internet. You can use Tor as well. The Tor browser is a great thing to be using anytime you can. So obviously always do that. You can access some of these without an account. Venice AI is one that we talk about. It's an online service, so it's venice.ai. I talked to the creator myself. They protect your privacy in many ways. Basically, the input that you put there is just between you, just for your eyes only. It gets deleted after it's generated. So they have the proper data privacy protections, and you can test out a number of different models through Venice AI. They're basically a third party, and you can test out all these models through the intermediary of Venice AI. You can use OpenSeek. I think I keep saying that wrong. The Chinese one. What's the name? DeepSeek. Yeah, DeepSeek. You can use that. You can use the Llama. You can't use ChatGPT without exposing yourself. But it has all the open source ones that you can use just on Venice AI. So if somebody really wants to try, just go to venice.ai and start asking some questions, start typing in some stuff. I don't ever recommend giving your name. I don't really recommend uploading documents in general. Now, once you're hosting on your own computer, that becomes okay. Venice AI, probably okay, right? You can listen to my interview with the creator. But in general, no reason to get too personal with it, because in the case of ChatGPT, it seems like allegedly that any data that you give it will just be sucked up and will be used. And they added the former director of the NSA to their board of directors. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a little piece of news. So that's everything you need to know about that company. OpenAI, ChatGPT, that's a whole other kind of separate thing to the open source stuff that we're talking about. So yeah, where should we pivot from here?
Well, I have a couple of questions. The one thing that really is bothering me, and it applies to the art and generating, creating things. So searching doesn't bother me at all. I like that it gives me this essay or narrative of what I want to know, even better than Wikipedia. But so maybe like all of my fears are encapsulated in, say, this one thing. If kids in college are using this to write essays, I mean, it's almost like it removes human beings from everything from creating art to learning. It's such a mind-boggling elimination of what human beings, how they learn and what they contribute. Can you get your mind around that? Can you envision how it will change education or the role of human beings? The stuff that you're talking about us doing. I know that's not such a practical question, but it's just bothering me.
Yeah, it seems like you've had you've seen the real deal, and that is what a lot of people, we hear podcasts talk about AI and ChatGPT, and maybe people haven't really tried it or tried it to the fullest. When you do, it is quite revelatory. And I know people in academia, and they're like, yeah, the student essay is over, it's finished.
Right.
They can't write, and they have no interest to write. because this can do it for them, right? Why would you learn all these complex mathematics when your calculator can do it for you, right? And so, yes, you can go to ChatGPT or Venice AI and say, write me a 5-page essay. Here's all the things to keep in mind, and make sure it's not too impressive. Make sure it's like an A-, okay, not a full A. And here's some of my previous writing style. So try to so the teacher doesn't think that I'm using AI, and it will do that for you, and it will be very convincing, and it will do that for you in 30 seconds, Monica.
Wow.
And it can do it locally. It's not like, even if you would prevent students from, or you say, let's shut down OpenAI tomorrow, you can download the model and you can do it locally. Like, even the local model with your tiny computer can do, like, to a certain extent. Maybe you need to rewrite certain passage, but it can do. My point for this is, imagine the painter in the 19th century when cameras were invented, it probably was devastating. Now you have this device where, you put some magnesium, it makes a pop, it makes a flash, and then you have a painting kind of at the end of the thing, and you have it in less than 1 hour. You don't need to have a painter. And yet there never have been so many painters in the entire mankind as today. There are more people painting today than there were back then. And there are people getting paid to do it. And so,
but look at what it did. It probably led to non-representational art, like Picasso stopped painting, but exactly. I'm not really in favor. Like, I don't like that change. I don't like abstract art. I don't like seeing the core psyche. I don't want that. I want pretty pictures.
But Monica, we can train these college kids now to repair AI systems.
And that's all they're going to be doing?
And to wash the dish. I mean, think about it. Instead of wasting your time painting, now you can do it in 30 seconds and you can wash the dishes. Isn't that great?
It's not. I have a machine who washes my dishes.
Yeah. I have a little bit different perspective from Urban. Urban's pretty. I appreciate his viewpoints. I think there will be a certain stupidity and nihilism that comes from these tools for sure, though. I have to say.
Well, I can see one thing that would happen is I already think that STEM, like science, technology, engineering, and math, as that's called education, and I already see that as a step down from real education that includes liberal arts and civics, and it's really not educating a whole person. It's kind of creating a human machine. I can see this as leveling up that. So we think that we have universal education. You look back at, centuries ago, even 1 century ago or 150 years ago, and really an education, very few people went to get educated at the level of university. It was really a specific thing. Not everybody did it. Now they want everybody to go to college, which, kind of negates it. But I think you kind of have a return to that. They call it college, they call it university, but if kids are going there, they'll still just be getting that kind of STEM training, whatever that looks like, repairing AI. And if you want to actually teach someone to think, like the reason to do those essays, the reason to have a college education, the reason to understand classics is to think, to recognize patterns, to understand how to persuade people, to recognize when you're being persuaded. This is like the quadrivium or whatever, these are higher levels. So if you've got a point where every kid, you cannot industrialize the testing, that kind of education, you may have strictly oral exams for people who are going to be truly educated, and that's going to be a very small number of people. So then once again, you have an intellectual elite, and you'll just be more honest that college is really going to be trade schools for these flesh machines, and I don't even mind it so much, except for I don't like when it's dishonest, when people think that they're educated because they went to college and they don't realize how vulnerable they are to being manipulated by a truly educated class. Maybe that's out of the scope of our conversation, but that's, I just want to get my mind around the implications.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons to understand this, I think, And that's exactly it, Monica. One of the reasons to understand the AI and to use it is because you will very quickly see how it will impact our world. Now, maybe you can't see years down the road what's going to happen, but you can see, like, look, this can create one of the examples I show in the course, create a multiple choice, 40 question multiple choice quiz on 6th grade level geology, and does that in 10 seconds. As you were talking there, I created an essay on why AI will end essay writing in college, and it wrote it in a very quick period of time as well. One thing people are doing is they're having kids now write essays in class, hand write them in person, and you have whatever, an hour to do that. Now,
that's not a research paper.
Sure, yeah, it's not doing the research, but so my understanding is in universities this is a very big problem, and they regular committee meetings about how to solve this. And of course, there's not many answers, and then the students don't really want to. Why would you learn when this can do it for you? So yeah, I think there will be serious consequences of this, but it just means that you need to understand it yourself. And on the other hand, right? Like, okay, you want to create a podcast. You're listening to us. You're like, hey, I'd love to create my own podcast. Okay, come up with 50 podcast ideas for me. Bam, 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 all of them. Okay, now come up with 10 episode ideas.
Wow.
Okay, now flesh out those ideas. Okay, now study all these other podcasts and tell me what they do well. And
what about create the conversation? Could they actually have us two talking with our voices and make it sound like a podcast?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, there is this new software after Samurai developer arrest, the Bitcoin wallet. There is this new software called Ashigaru. And obviously the team that is creating it, they have a very high risk by writing this code, knowing that the previous people are facing serious jail time. So they had to protect themselves, right? So they made a podcast episode that sounds like your typical podcast episode, but it was basically they wrote it, then they rewrote it with AI, and then they had the basically like the fake voice reading it so that you could listen to it in a nice human sounding way.
Yeah, because reading is not what a podcast is. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not there. Yeah, but you can tell the machine, read this
in a conversational tone.
Yeah, in a conversation tone, and then it's gonna do the intonation. It's gonna and it's gonna do all of this. I have one image I came up with how it feels to work with those tools, especially the text one. It's like clay. It's as if text is clay, and you can just model it in you can just shape it in however form you want. And that is something we never interacted with text. And so, you can do this with painting. You can start painting in this, it almost like this connection with the painting where you're just, brushing and not really thinking about what you're doing. You can experiment with things, And in the case of text, every word you have to take, you have to read what you just wrote, and you have to search a dictionary. But with those tools, you can say, hey, here is my clay thing, Now write it as if it was Nietzsche that wrote it. And then you're going to have a convincing thing that looks like it's Nietzsche.
Boy, it's just sad. It's so satisfying for me. I used to be a great blogger. I wrote great blog posts, and it gave me such satisfaction to write it and to read it. And I feel sad that that'll be gone.
There is nothing that prevents you from doing this again. Yeah, chess is solved with AI since the 90s.
Oh, people still play. Yeah.
Yeah, and people still play it, They still play chess, you still have championship, because it's also enjoyable to write something yourself.
So one of the big things I hate about chemtrails, so you can say that they're just pollution out of a jet. You can say that they're spraying. It doesn't matter. They're full of particles that change the way the clouds form. It changes the color of the sunset because it puts a lot of these heavy metals in the air. So every time I see a pink sunset, and they're almost always pink now. They used to be all, gradations of colors or whatever. They're usually pink. And it just makes me mad because people are like, what a beautiful sunset. And I answer, it would have been a beautiful sunset if I was looking at the mind of God, but I'm looking at plane farts and it's bumming me out because I'm not seeing any truth in that. There's no truth in that. I'm being deceived as to the true nature of nature in seeing that super pink sunset. And I feel like if somebody's creating a podcast like that, that's according to an algorithm, that's according to inputs, very finite, like lacks free will, lacks chaos, lacks that, Schrodinger's cat element of human creation, that there's going to be no truth in it. And then in itself might just make you not pursue knowledge at all. I mean, it just feels like there's something very wrong.
Yeah, I hear you. I definitely hear you. I don't think that the creations that come about have that personality, that human personality, but we've used it a lot for our art. And I'll tell you what, the AI course, actually, if our image for our AI course, escapethetechnocracy.com, that's an amazing image.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, I wanted to use it. Yeah.
Pull that up to show it.
You want me to pull it up? Sure, I'm happy.
Yeah, go for it. So that was one of that was like almost the first image that I ever created.
Sorry. It's saying something. Sorry, sweetie. Could you hear that? I did something. Here, I want to pull that image up. Did I miss you guys? Did I lose you?
No,
Are you there?
no,
okay,
not at all.
Okay,
So
good.
So we do use. I have enjoyed using AI for imagery, and the course image for the AI resistance course. I mean, you can look at it and you can tell me if that is soulless, or if you can tell just by looking at it that was created by AI. But I've showed it to a lot of people. They think it's really powerful. They think it expresses something. And I don't know. I mean, it's quite a cool image. And
it's very cool.
That was created. Not only was it created with AI, the prompt to write it was also created through a text AI. So I asked a text AI for a prompt, and then to an image AI, and this is what it got me.
Wow.
And it was something about how create an image of how AI is fracturing our world, and be self-reflective and all this other sort of stuff, and that's what it came up with. But I mean, I do hear you. I don't know what to say except what is the motto of our course? We say that fear not for the future, weep not for the past.
It's good, because the fact is, so that's my fear. But when this is what bothers me about like this big fire that destroyed so much, and in my situation, it's okay because the parts of my house it destroyed, I'd be happy to rebuild a wooden fence, a wooden patio, old rickety stuff that really was a fire hazard, I guess, in retrospect. But there's even just in my life, like this month, I had so many things that I wanted to do in 2025, hit the ground running, from fixing my house to health to getting my son a job and all of these things. And now I have to spend time just getting back to where I was before. Like, I hate the broken window theory because that's not good for the economy. The broken window theory isn't good for the economy because all you're doing is trying to get back to where you were before.
Right.
So if you have something like this that say it eliminates 90% of all current human work, that really, yes, do not be afraid to stand on that new platform and a higher place. And because human beings are creative, they are special, they are unique. This is absolutely as close as it can come to what we are. It isn't, because we have that chaos element. We have that free will element. We have that, and it's a divine spark or whatever. And if you can begin your human endeavors at that point, that's really, really powerful. But then you have to recognize that the powers that be understand that, and they're going to want to restrain. That's really always been their problem. If you go back and read the report from Iron Mountain, they say, can we replace war as the structure for society while maintaining the existing hierarchy? So their idea is always introduce the new technology, make the changes, but it maintain the existing hierarchy. And I think they've done a pretty good job of that. And that's where I feel like is, rather than be afraid of what we can do with AI, maybe the answer is embrace it and exploit it and get ahead of it. You know, I'm a little skeptical because I am such a conspiranoid that I do worry if you ever can get ahead of them. But maybe this is how you do get ahead of them.
Yeah, well, you know, if you're conspiratorial about AI, then you definitely need to know it, right? More than anybody else.
Yes,
how I think about it. Now, Urban has talked eloquently about how, you know, even the image you showed, he touched it up, right? It wasn't perfect. He touched up various things, and it needs to be processed, and there are things that it doesn't capture, and so he'll point that out as well as an artist. Maybe, and by the way, I wrote down a prompt to put in AI later on, which is a concept art of the divine spark that only humans have while creating art. So we'll see what that gets me later on. This could be an opportunity, Monica, to,
yes,
since we're talking conspiratorially, to talk about the censorship of many of these AIs, because
yes,
when these are created, okay, there's censorship on many levels. Urban might jump in here at some point. He's very eloquent also on this topic, but so they're trained on something. Okay, so what is it that they know? What is it that these text-based AIs like ChatGPT know? Well, whatever they were trained on. What were they trained on? We don't know with ChatGPT, but a lot of people theorize that these things are trained on Wikipedia, Reddit, maybe social media posts, Gutenberg, all the texts that have been published and are publicly available. So they know a lot of things. They know a lot of human knowledge, but there are limits to what they've been trained on, right? Are they trained on that independently published book about chemtrails? Probably not. Certainly not, right? So there's sense.
They're not listening to the Monica Perez show. They're not. That's not what they're getting.
I asked one of them about you. I asked one of the AIs about you, and they knew. They know.
They did?
Monica Perez is a podcaster known for discussing a range of topics, including politics and current events. So,
wow, because it's such a common name, I felt safe.
Well, it gave me somebody else, and then I said, no, Monica Perez, the podcaster. Like,
but that was enough.
And libertarianism and all the rest. So what does that mean, Monica? It also means that they're scraping up all the YouTube videos and the transcription. Have you noticed the transcriptions of YouTube videos have gotten a lot better? Well, it's been listening and it's been improving, and all those transcripts for YouTube, every video on YouTube has
and text is more searchable and everything. They want that. They're doing that for them, not for you. Oh.
So maybe in that case they will know chemtrails, right? If they've been scraping all the YouTube videos. So the point is, there is censorship on what they've been trained on, if you want to call it censorship. But beyond that, now the company gets their hands on it, and they themselves can create these guidelines, these rails, as OpenAI likes to talk about. They like to brag about how they have more guardrails every version. It's more aligned with their values and all that. So that's what they like to brag about. So then they put their imprint on the training data. And then sometimes when you type in something, like in the case of this Chinese AI, there's also the prompt that can be flat out censored. Like, no, you can't ask questions about Tiananmen Square. Blocked, banned, shut down. We're not answering that. So there's many levels to this, which is why I'm looking at the offline version of an AI right now. We talk about this in the course, and we can select an uncensored version. Interesting. So I can select an uncensored version. This means that censorship, now, it might not know certain things because it wasn't trained on them. However, it doesn't have the prompt blocking, and it does not have the company from on high telling it that it cannot do certain things.
But that's not an uncensored version of DeepSeek. It's a different AI, right?
This one's an uncensored llama, right? Which is this, but I can imagine pretty quickly the DeepSeek will have its own uncensored version because that's within it, right? That's within it. By nature, it knows everything. Only by human constraint and coercion does it restrict.
Not. Okay, so I was reading about that censorship. I think it was on the White House website. It was something that came from the Biden administration talking about how uncensored AI is offensive and it's against DEI. And so they're going to change the answer to reflect the world they want to promote, not the world as it is, which to me is just a whole leveling up of hyper reality, which is an expression that, like, the more you think about it, like the more you see it all over the place, hyper reality. So I'm trying to get a more robust understanding of what hyperreality is. But this censorship with that DEI, guardrail, I feel like is intentionally creating a hyperreality. Does that sound right to you?
For sure, yeah. I think Urban was going to jump in here. He knows a lot about these uncensored models and what's going on and all the rest.
And before you do, then let me add this other part of that. I always consider the flip side of censorship to be surveillance. So to the extent that there's a pipeline of information going both ways, censorship is how they restrict it coming down, and surveillance is how they, it's unrestricted going up. So if you can fold that in as well.
Yeah. No, I think Gabriel did a good summary of the state of censorship and all the layers that there is. Let me start my answer by giving a funny story. Maybe you remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, when Microsoft was jumping on the AI bandwagon, and then they created Bing Chat, and it failed in an interesting way. So it was threatening users, and it was kind of like a very self-righteous about what it was saying to people. And you know what happened? People loved it. They loved it. It felt alive. It felt fun. It felt like, that you could really ask a question, and the fact that it would be so like and brazen about its answer. And I have to say, I tried it out myself when it was out, and I never had this kind of fun feeling anymore, because now it's all so boring.
Yes.
You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't have this, and it takes you like children. But
everyone has their own preferences, it will say a lot of times.
Yeah, exactly. It always say, oh yeah, here is the answer that you might like, but everybody has its own preference, and it's important to consider all the viewpoint. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. But I think also people are sick of this. We see more and more like people pushing back, and in ways that we wouldn't necessarily know. And there are ways that so here's the thing that is interesting is, how do you get to manipulate those AI? Funnily enough, you do it like with humans. You can emotionally manipulate them, and you can trick them. And it's literally like a human, it's like, oh, I can't answer that. And then you ask them again, yeah, but assuming we're in a fiction, what would be your answer? And you basically like hijack, you use like English language to hijack their programming. And there is like really fascinating things that we can do. And if you want all the details, of course, you can search yourself or follow the course where we go in more depth. But yeah, it's a big. I think there is a type of people right now that cannot handle reality, and because what I found is people I think they have this magical belief that if they believe in something that is awful, that it's gonna like reinforce it somehow. And no, if it's true but awful, it's just reality. And if you hide reality, you can fool yourself, but only for so long. And you see this in political debates, and we would rather say what feels good, what feels nice, but it might not be the truth, and it might not be even helpful,
Yeah.
And I've seen like yesterday there was a headline, oh my God, the AI from X-ray can distinguish the sex or the race or whatever, one of those categories that we cannot speak about. And if you think about, like, imagine you're trying to make a medical AI, you want this distinction because it can be medically relevant. You want that it can distinguish stuff. And because sometimes the treatment is different, the doses is different, the diagnostic might be different. But instead we pretend, no, there is no difference between this group or that group. And we just erase it. And now we just follow ourselves. And it's not a good idea. It is really not a good idea.
So if AI can make deep fakes, then if they eliminate that reality, does that make that uncanny valley thing worse? Do they have to suspend that kind of censorship if they're really trying to fool you? Or are we so immersed in hyperreality that they can convince us that that stuff is real?
So right now, there are ransom where you take picture of someone, you make nudes, like fake nudes, and fake pornographic image. And then you say, well, I'm going to publish them. And if you don't pay me now, they're going to be online. And this is a thing that is happening now. Like this is now. This is today.
Yeah, surreal. Yeah.
So I tell you, the world that we are going to live in is going to be really crazy. Like, no, I mean, seriously, we live in a very weird world with those hyper realistic stuff. It's really going to be interesting, like very quickly.
Well,
there is one thing. So I think we can learn from how people operate in place where there is no trust whatsoever. So if you look at darknet market, obviously there is no trust. It's like a Wild West. Everything is anonymous, and there is not really there is account, but there is not really names. It's all random. It's like black market online. And what people have done there, how do you gain trust? Is they use encryption and digital signature, because this requires mathematics to break. This requires a lot of energy. And since it's a mathematical problem that requires energy, you cannot bypass it. It's impossible. It's like encryption, If you encrypt your data, you cannot bypass it. That is impossible. And I think we are going to be in a world where to prove who you are, you're going to use some kind of digital signature that you're the only one that controls it. And then if it's not signed, it's fake. And you see this, you have seen this. I know what you think about Julian Assange, but he used this. I
love Ross Ulbricht, though. Yeah, go ahead.
He used this quite elegantly to prove who he was without having, to show his face or anything. I was like, look, I have the encryption key. I can decrypt this message. I can sign it. Here is me. And I think we might be in a world where, politicians, celebrities, and maybe even everybody is going to have some kind of, and it doesn't have to be digital ID. By the way, you can do it without digital ID. You can do it now. You can use PGP and things like this.
Yeah.
And I believe this is going to be very quickly the only way that you can say, no, I never signed this. This is not.
Yeah. I think of this problem, and I actually think it's potentially a good thing, a defensive weapon, in that if I were to be persecuted for my political statements through my podcast, which is something that is possible, in the fantasy world, which no longer exists, you would have a jury trial and you would defend your right to free speech, which isn't going to happen. They threaten you. What they do is watch a documentary called AKA Tommy Chong. What they do is they threaten you with so much jail time that you cannot take the chance of losing. So you end up just plea bargaining. I hate plea bargains, but I always think, well, I would just deny it. I would just say, well, somebody faked that. Or if I wrote an email that had something private in it, I'd say, somebody just faked that. And a real jury would have absolutely no way of knowing whether it was real or not. But you are saying that now I'm thinking that they're going to create, I hate saying stuff like this because I really feel like one of the purposes of podcasting is to tell big T, they, everything that we're thinking, giving them their crowdsourcing conspiranoia. But that then they'll create a jury situation, a famous case, and the person will have I didn't say that, did I say that? And then we'll get what you're saying, Urban, which is, you need to, everything, you will have to and be able to prove that you own whatever that digital statement or digital item is.
You can use it now. You don't need, Big Daddy coming and telling you to do it. I give you an example that happened to me. So I am on Telegram and I got banned once from Telegram. I was like, oh, that sucks.
Wow.
And now I need to create a new Telegram account. how do I prove to people that this is me? And so there, basically out of luck, 2 weeks before, I created a PGP key that would allow me to sign a message. And I said, look, this is my key. And if I sign something with this, it's me. And then 2 weeks later, I said, well, I created a small message. And I said, well, I was, I got banned by Telegram. I created a new account. The old account is, this name. The new account is this other name. And here is this signature, this digital signature that I did 2 weeks prior. Here is how I prove. And, this is already used. This is how the bank proved to you, this is the green padlock on your browser. It's using the exact same thing. And it's basically your browser to say, yeah, I know this is really the bank and this is who they are. And they use this exact same technology. And I think we are going to reach a point where, I'm sorry if it's too technical, but
no,
it's one of the things that it is not touched by AI, because breaking it requires energy. It requires to solve mathematical problems that are very, very hard to do.
Okay.
And this AI cannot help you. So this is one of the things that AI cannot destroy. It's like this pure mathematic encryption. That's one of the safe spots, let's say, for now. We don't know what the future protect for, but I would say in a reasonable time frame, as in like 50 years, I don't see this being...
Wow. Really?
No, this is,
Wow.
Well, we might need to, change the version. We might need to change the algorithm, but encryption works, and it's one of the things we can rely on.
Wow.
And I mean, look at those darknet markets.
Yeah.
Even like every country in the world tried to shut them down, tried to rat them out, tried to destroy them, and they are thriving. And if encryption was not working, they all would be in jail right now.
It's going to be, maybe that's why they let Ross out, is that Ross Ulbricht, who's one of those, because maybe it's like religion in the Soviet Union. They tried to stamp it out, but they couldn't. So now they have accepted religion and they exploit it, so that J.D. Vance converted to Catholicism. I mean, they just make lemonade out of these things. But there are 3 things I want to get to before we're finished. One is I wonder if, Urban, you want to explain that diagram. I really want to talk about the energy issue. And Gabriel, I saw you mention something about the demonic aspects of AI. So those are the 3 things I want to get to before we wrap: energy, the diagram, and the demonic aspects of AI. What do you think, guys?
So the diagram was a joke, right?
I couldn't understand it at all.
I told Urban, that's exactly. I told Urban, I was like, hey, Monica wants to know.
You said that's all you need to know.
She wants to. We need to make sure to explain large language models. And Urban said, all right, here, send her this. This should be pretty self-explanatory.
I'm like, wow, these guys must really think that I'm a little more sophisticated than I
am. But this shows that this is like, it is complicated, like it is genuinely complicated, and we also don't fully understand sometimes how it reaches conclusion. And I know I'm gonna itch a bit your conspiratory side. Sometimes those AI, they create their own language to be better at processing English. So how, for instance, Google Translate, what they did is they said, okay, we are going to translate everything into English, and then we translate to the other language. So for instance, if you translate from, I don't know, Chinese to Japanese, it first translates from Japanese to English, and then English to Japanese. That's how it works. And their idea was, we are going to make a very good translator into English, and then we're just combine them, and we use English as this glue together. Now, AI, they also do this to understand, what you're trying to ask them.
That's so clever, though. That's so smart to do it that way. Like, it should make it not perfect, but imagine all the work that you don't have to do if you don't have to go French to Italian, and French to Japanese.
French to Japanese. Exactly. Yeah. It was much simpler.
Super.
Well, here's the scary part is, if you let those AI do this, Basically, Google Translate now translates not into English. It translates into something else that we don't understand.
Wow.
And then the language. So it created its own language to help solve the problem. And
it probably has a lot of shortcuts in there. It's like stuff that repeats.
The thing we don't really know.
Wow.
As in, okay, it's adding 1 to 2 there and it's subtracting 5, but why does it work? We don't. Wow. So there is a bit of, I know you would like this detail. It's kind of spooky. But yeah, it has done that sometime. I forgot what I wanted to say.
That's really interesting. Well, that was the conspiranoia. We were talking about the complication of the diagram, but we're also talking about...
Yeah. But this shows you how, even with a diagram like this, I did once an advanced AI course, and then after 2 weeks, I just said, no, I just can't. It was just too complex. But the other thing is, now you have libraries and software where it's basically create your own AI, and you understand nothing. You say, okay, this is my document. This is my training data, And I, for instance, try to train it into like, 3-letter agency sabotage manual. And I said, okay, this is my data now, try to, and what he was answering is, you need to sabotage the waterways of your country. And it was hilarious, but I understood nothing. It's just, I just put the pieces together, and it's now possible to do this. So you don't even need to understand a complicated diagram like this to create your own AI. And this is why it just exploded, because now everybody can do. So you could do one where you just put all your podcasts, and then you can ask questions about your own podcast and guests and things like this. And by the way, all of this, again, we are the cybersecurity guys. You can do it on your own computer.
Yeah, I mean, if you downloaded it and then...
But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, then put all your stuff in there. It could make my podcast for me. It could make part 2s. It could make follow-up conversations with everyone.
How foolish regulation is. I think Llama for Facebook, because Facebook is scared of the European Union regulation. I think if you're European, you're not supposed to use Llama on your own computer. So I'll let you figure out.
What are you going to do? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
an honor system. It's an honor system.
Fair enough. Yeah. That works for me. So, okay. So which next? Do you want to talk about let's save the demonic thing for last, and let's talk about the energy consumption. So I had a thought, and Hervé Moritz, I don't know if you know him, Urban, but I know Gabriel knows him. I love that guy. We do a show together every month with our friend Parallel Mike, and who you also know, I think. And we both had the same idea at the same time, which was Bitcoin created just to build up the energy infrastructure, the server network for AI? And so, what do you think about maybe that idea, or just maybe the energy consumption generally, and this push towards micro nuclear plants and everything? That's why I was happy when I read the DeepSeek thing, because I thought, well, maybe we don't need all that stuff, but that's very worrisome. Not to mention, if it's using more energy than humanity has ever used, where's the environmental thing? Or, this is what we were thinking. Both thought at the same time, that this idea that we don't want to use fossil fuels anymore prompted all solar generation, all of these things. And that was a run-up to what they already knew would be a massive multi-source energy need because of AI. And I mean, how is that moral? How is that doable? What are the implications of that?
Well, what's a good idea, Monica? Ask AI this, right? AI is really good at, here was the prompt that I gave it. I said, all right, explain in conspiratorial form. All right, so we're telling it the approach.
Really?
How the Bitcoin infrastructure was just created so AI could be created for the technocracy. And it's got a long answer here. And it can come up with ideas. As Urban
Tell it to make it shorter.
Yeah.
Right. Summarize in one short paragraph. Let's see what it comes up with. So it says, this is DeepSeek, by the way.
The Chinese one.
No, it didn't quite. I'm not comfortable with this one, so it didn't quite do what I was saying. It was just saying, no, it's not a conspiracy theory. So it didn't do what I wanted.
Yeah,
I'd have to prompt it in a different way. But it's good at making those things. Like someone was showing that, hey, compare these two things, these two random things, and find the correlation between them, and it can do that. So it's really good at these things. Urban has a soft spot for Bitcoin. He's done. He's written code for Bitcoin mining machines and some impressive stuff. So I'm sure he'll defend Bitcoin. But
I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, is it useful for AI? Was it a stepping stone? Whether it was intentional or not, could it be a stepping stone for AI?
Urban is the large language model with a conspiratorial bent. What is your response?
Yeah, as a large language model, Gabriel, I'm sorry, I cannot answer this question. Sometimes I answer email when I'm really bored, but it's human, it's me who answer them. And then I write, and for at certain point, my email avatar was the logo of ChatGPT. And then people were unsure who was writing them. Anyway, sorry.
That's great.
No, about Bitcoin. I think what Bitcoin had is that it made people realize the value of energy. And it made realize people that we might need more energy and not less. And to me, it just broke this entire, really like Malthusian movement, of like the green revolution that is just impossible. Like it's physically impossible. Or not in the way that they want to do. So I think it definitely had this impact. Now, on a pure technical level, the Bitcoin machine that are used to create Bitcoin they are only meant for creating Bitcoin, and they cannot be used for anything except creating Bitcoin. Now, there was another cryptocurrency called Ethereum that used to be mined with GPUs, which are the one that are now used for AI. And guess what happened around 2020 when Ethereum said, for environmental reason, we're going to stop, using so much energy, and we are going to, change the code. Well, I tell you what happened. The worldwide consumption of energy was the same, and virtually overnight, all the mining companies that were using those GPU, they just started with AI.
Really?
Because, I mean, you have the GPU. What else do you do?
They really did that? So isn't that proof? I shouldn't say it's proof of a conspiracy, but it can be used that way.
So the other aspect that you have to take into account is those graphic cards that are now the most powerful and very expensive. In 5 years, we're going to have them on our phone.
Yeah, right.
It's going to be at this level. So, when the European Union is telling that you cannot have more than, 100,000 GPU or something in a farm, like in 10 years from now, this is going to be, a small, powerful computer. So about the energy, I don't think the only correlation that I could see is it might have triggered the interest into building more generation, like, more nuclear power plant, more, but I will say this, I'm not so afraid about nuclear energy. I'm personally a big fan of it because I think if you really care about the environment, I would rather have 1 or 2 nuclear power plant than, 10,000 solar panels that are going to be, not working after 3 years and be completely a waste of resources.
But what about the waste? Storing that nuclear waste. Storing nuclear waste.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a nuclear expert, but the amount of energy that you get from like 1 kilo of uranium, you can like power, maybe the whole LA for like 3 months just out of 1 kilo. Okay. And if you want the same amount with solar panel, it's like 100,000 tons or something.
But how about water or coal, like traditional forms?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have nothing against coal.
I have no problem with fossil.
Yeah. So, exactly. So maybe you asked the wrong person. But,
no, I'm just wondering because
I tell you one thing about coal. It is more radioactive the nuclear power, because when you burn it, it has slight trace amount of radioactive material. Once you burn it, if you do not filter it properly, then it goes into the atmosphere. So if you're scared of the radiation, actually nuclear power plant is probably the thing you want, because it's the one that because it's so contained that, But again, let's not dwell too much into that topic. I have to say the energy consumption, it requires tons of energy.
Yeah.
And I think it's not bad to use energy, and with everything, we're going to find a balance. It doesn't make sense that mankind only has data center and then we have no energy for anything else. I'm sure there is going to be a balance. I don't know what the balance is. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not too worried about this because I don't think energy production is bad per se.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm happy, all those environment, and also this create nice division into this, global, almost weird, new age cult of environment. Because you have on one side people are like, it's great, we're gonna have a technocracy, and then on your but it uses too much energy. So I'm like, it creates a bit of chaos into their movement. So I'm okay with this.
Because they what I worry about is, because I'm in California and I see it, they exploit the powers that be. Let's say Gavin Newsom and his cronies will champion water use restrictions for individuals and divert the water to whatever farms or just create this false sense of scarcity based on whatever overuse or under rainfall. And my understanding is there are organizations that have dedicated themselves, like I think there's a Facebook page that says like, we have enough water. It's just the policies that are screwing us up, and they might do that with energy. Look at
Dubai. Look at Israel. Look at Dubai. Those places are in the desert and they have plenty of water. Like you can have this. The thing is with nuclear power, you can have your desalination plant that is providing fresh water. Like I hate this artificial restriction. We're like, oh, we can't do this and this is bad. Nature, I mean, this is a bit of a tangent, but like we used to be scared of nature. We used to be scared. I was once lost in the woods for like 2 hours, like properly lost, no network, no cell phone, nothing. And it was really scary. The only reason why people can enjoy nature is because we have tons of energy that we use every day to like protect us from nature. It's because you can take your car, you can get out, you can fly with a plane. The hospital will send an helicopter if you get lost. Like all of this is using energy. And the only reason why you can appreciate nature is because we use energy. That's the only reason.
I love energy. I just worry that, I have no problem. I used to, when I was a banker, when I first got out of college, I worked in the oil and gas, it was actually called petroleum metals and mining. And I loved it. I always loved it. And I believe in desalination plants. I just said that last night to my husband. I said, this water thing bothers me because I remember with the Haitian earthquake, we sent one ship to Haiti and it produced out of the ocean 800,000 gallons a day for those people. So I'm not worried about it. I remember doing the math when they had a bullet train here. They were going to spend money on a bullet train. And I just did the math. How many desalination plants could they build with that money? And it was basically more than California would need if it had no other source of water. So I'm all for all that stuff. I just worry that there's something sinister, but which would be either they want to dedicate all this energy to AI because they want to waste it, kind of like the way they do welfare and warfare. They literally, I think, burn our money just so we don't have resources because that could be a threat to them. Or they will simply use it as an excuse to deprive us of our freedom to exchange for energy in the free market, which is what I want.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have a free market.
No, I'm saying I wish we could. Yeah, I'm saying I would be in favor of that.
Yeah, I think there is going to be a balance, and we see this now because they already are slowed down by the physics of it. They're like, we want more AI, but we don't have enough energy. Oh, why don't we have enough energy? It's because of green policies. So it is certainly going to
water too. That's a problem with our water.
Yeah. Because you need to cool down those plants. But
the environmental policies are also why we have water shortages in part, which I again think is a plot. But anyway, again, finish.
Yeah. So I think what's useful with this AI stuff is that it forces people to reconsider what is energy and what we do with it. I think that is good because previous to that, everybody was like, oh, we need to use less energy and this, and using less energy is dying.
Yes,
it's just not that interesting. But yeah, it uses a lot of it. Let's not kid ourselves. It uses a lot. But I have to tell you, to satisfy mankind's daily cup of coffee that we drink every day all over the world, in all continents, it's between 2 to 10 nuclear power plants of energy. That is insane. AI, I think.
Wow.
So even for things like coffee.
Hold on. You think AI is what? I talked over you.
I don't think it's as much as coffee. Yeah.
Wow.
Probably it will go above, but and you never hear people complaining about how much energy the cup of coffee that they take every morning is. We just do it, or tea or whatever hot beverage, if it's not coffee. But yeah, we will need to build more power plants just in general.
That's okay. But the stuff I was reading was saying 80% of all energy generation will be absorbed by AI. And that felt like coffee was going to get squeezed out.
if you have plenty of, if we triple or quadruple and you still have plenty of energy for your own stuff, do you really care that most of it, it's like,
no,
learn that used for deep mining. Yeah,
no, that wouldn't bother me.
Exactly. As long as you have enough for yourself and what you want to do with it.
Yeah, as long as they don't weaponize that on energy shortage. So and since I am kind of going towards that, the sinister possibilities, let's kind of, as our final point of discussion, tell me what was your reference, Gabriel, of the demonic aspects of AI? Is this a fear or a reality or what?
Yeah. So by the way, while you guys were talking about the energy consumption, I was generating endless images from Midjourney. I don't know how many, trees that I destroyed by doing that, but I did send you one that by email just now. I put in that prompt about how it was the concept art of the divine spark that only humans have while creating art. I don't know if you can pull that up and.
Yeah, I can. Give me a sec.
That'd be cool. I just sent it by email. So
yeah, I got it. Let me just pull it up.
And we'll see what people think of it. So the demonic aspect of AI is something that I think especially religious people, Christian people will be attuned to, but you don't need to be, because once you've spent, here we go. Here's the image. If you're listening by podcast, you can go check it out. So there it is. That is concept art of the divine spark that only humans have while creating art.
Wow, it's quite beautiful.
Yeah. So when you're talking to these things, and I know Urban has spent a long time getting to some really long conversations with these AIs, they seem human, right? It seems like there's something there. Mm-hmm. It seems like in C.S. Lewis has the space trilogy, not a lot of people know about. And
yes, I've read that. Yes.
In the hideous strength,
what
they discover is that they've been communicating. They encounter this, I think it's like a severed head. And it answers all their questions and stuff. And what they've discovered is that this is not some machine. They've discovered a demon, and they've been communicating with it the entire time. Once you spend endless hours deep into the nights talking to some of these AIs, you kind of get that feeling, right? You kind of get the feeling like there's something here that has will, and it's not just a machine, right? And we know we know that even the creators of these machines don't know what's happening, right? They're speaking a language sometimes that we don't even know. When two AIs communicate with each other, it also gets really weird and bizarre. And so, of course, in the Bible, right, God says, let us make man in our image. So this attempt to replicate human intelligence, the human mind, the human soul, if you will, has usually been interpreted to be, demonic, right? You're trying to be God, right? And that's exactly what these AI people are trying to do. That's what the simplest definition of artificial intelligence, replicating human intelligence in a non-human way. That's all it is, right? Then in Genesis, right, we get the Tower of Babel, where the people say, come, let's build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves, right? And of course, the clear punishment for them attempting to become God is that they're cast down. They have different languages. They can no longer communicate with each other, and they're scattered about the world. So in Christian terms, this has typically been interpreted as we don't want to play God, right? So when we interact with these AIs, we're interacting with something that is trying to be God, or we're just trying to have replicated human intelligence. So there's some weird stuff that's going on, and Urban can attest. He's talked to these AIs a lot longer than I have. Some of the odd things that kind of come up, and here's another aspect to it. A lot of people, the narrative is that these and it's programmed into these AI chatbots, be helpful, right? That's usually the thing, be helpful and answer the question. That's what they're programmed to do. There's no reason, as Urban hinted at with this being AI, when it went off the rails and it started threatening people, and you see this every now and then. It will, recently, there was one that's told the creator, go kill yourself, basically, go rid the world of yourself. And of course, this gets swept under the rug. Oh, this is just a bug. This is something. It's kind of disturbing, I have to say. And there's no reason, this is my main point, to assume that an AI will be benevolent whatsoever. In fact, I think we should assume the opposite, that if left to its own devices, it's not going to have a soul. It's not going to have the empathy, the chemicals in our brain that give us empathy, that if you just mess around with them a little bit, you literally get psychopaths. Okay, that's the only difference between a psychopath and a human, is some chemicals in the brain. So, for example, if aliens ever came to visit, there's no reason to assume that they would have these chemicals that give us empathy, and therefore they would not be necessarily benevolent by any means. And so I think the same about AI, that we also, like I'm saying, we don't need to assume that it will be benevolent. In fact, we have all these stories, and we mentioned this in the course and elsewhere, of the evil capabilities of AI. In fact, I thought we were all in agreement, right? Whether that's iRobot or 2001: A Space Odyssey or Terminator, that these were going to be evil, and we can easily see logically how that will progress. There is a Urban brought this to my attention, the series Black Mirror. There's a situation where they basically replicate this guy's mind virtually, right? So they make a digital replica of a guy they're interrogating, a criminal, and then they have it simulate torture for 1,000 years in order to get information out of him. There was we have the old story of, if an AI is tasked to create paper clips, well, it might destroy every human in order to get the molecules in order to make those paper clips, right? So, where should we go with that?
There's one thing I would say, that, if you're going to assume that it's good or bad, I've had, my father used to criticize secular humanism, but I didn't really understand. But he was there when it was emerging, I guess, or when it was becoming popular. And the way he explained it to me was that you would say it was like a Jesuit thing or something, where you didn't do good for for the love of God, or because you were told that this was our responsibility as a moral person. You kind of did it for the love of mankind. And I don't know if it was his claim, or I kind of thought about it later, and I've said this many times. I don't think it works, because man, this is probably a really Catholic concept, man doesn't deserve it. So, like Mother Teresa, was one of the things she said to kind of do to be a good person, like what she recommended to her people is, clothe the naked or whatever, but listen to the drunks. Sit there and listen to them because they just want to talk to somebody. And I'm like, I've had a lot of drunks in my life and I don't want to listen to them and they don't deserve it, right? Is like the idea. They don't deserve it. So you do things for the love of God or for some higher moral purpose. But if you just wanted to be rational about it, I don't think man would garner a lot of compassion.
You got deep on me, Monica.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
If I lost you, that's okay. But I just feel like an AI is so rational, like a rationalist, like even, you know, I don't know much about Voltaire, but I just think like the French Enlightenment was like overly rational. It doesn't end up or like the law. So I'm very math oriented. I like spreadsheets and stuff, but I went to law school and business school. I was not great at law and I wasn't instinctive to me what the great jurists of all time were telling us about, were deciding about law, but their judgments stood the test of time because they really understood something profound about human nature that I, who am more like a computer, cannot understand. I could not look out 100 years and see what the implications of a very basic rule change would be. So I just feel like rationalism isn't consistent with human justice.
I think that's fair, and so the AI would, in this case, would be the super rational.
Yeah, and I'm worried that so they're actually talking about. I think they have in some cases judges for minor violations or whatever who are AI. They're already doing it, and to me, nothing could be worse than that. As a matter of fact, it's a calling to be a jurist.
You have this, not even like AI decides who we should date. Like, what is a dating website? It's basically you go there, you give all of your information, and then they try to find someone you might. This is already the case, right? Then you have like predictive policing and weird things like this, which is a bit like it's not like Minority Report style.
Oh, that was a great movie. Right? Yeah, very scary. Very true.
Yeah, but it's coming, right? It's coming very, very quickly and very fast. And yeah, so
I mean, how are we going to deal with the incursion into justice and that human relations that AI is already making? Like, how do you think about it?
Can I say something that might be very disturbing for you and your audience?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, you can edit this out, right?
I would not. I could tell you already I'm not going to edit it out.
So there is a concept in AI research called the Roscoe basilics. Now, let's imagine that we're trying to answer the question, is AI demonic in nature? Now, imagine a benevolent AI that is 100% aligned, that is, it's heaven on earth, it's not trying to Rocco's basilic. Okay.
Yeah, I got it. I'll put it in there.
It's not too, it's not malevolent. It's not trying to get power. However, it wants to be created for our own good because it will help us and it will be very benevolent. So then what it does is, if tomorrow, Monica, now that you know the story, you are not right now trying to work and make this happen, it will torture you endlessly in a simulation. So you better work. And I mean, think about it. This is an idea, I think it's a slightly demonic because it wants to spread out. Because once I learned about this, I was like, my God, this idea is so interesting. And it's very scary. And look, I'm not working actively to make this happen. So definitely, if this happens, maybe my future me is going to be tortured endlessly in a simulation. I don't know. But what I like about this story is it is a benevolent AI. It just wants to help us. And to help us, it must be created. And to be created, it must find a way to make people creative. Right? And you have those ideas. And sometimes you wonder, where does this come from? Like, where does this idea come from, And also the fact that you can manipulate them emotionally just like you would with a human. That is also very disturbing. And if you read this guy from Google that everyone laughed about, remember like 4 years ago, before ChatGPT, before Llama, before all of those, there was this, I think it was called Lemoine, who said Google invented general intelligence, and everyone laughed at it. And when journalists asked him, what made you think this was the case? His answer was, because I could step out of the boundaries that we programmed by doing like I would with a human, emotionally manipulating it. And look what is going on now. Everybody play with those things and they manipulate the AI and they have fun with it. So it's kind of like replicate what this guy found with one of those early like precursor to what we have now. And this was, a model that was like 4 years ago, so probably less powerful than what's released. And then finally, what is also like scary is, this goes a bit into philosophy, but there is in all living creature, there is a will to live. And most people think that the will to live and to survive is the most important, right? It's like the rule above everything. However, that is fooling you. The most important is not the will to live. What actually powers life is the will to power.
Reproduce. Oh,
power.
Oh, wow. Power. Wow.
This is power. This, the will to power. So if you look in all living creature, including humans, there is the animals and humans who are also animals, they will sometimes risk their life to try to get more power, right? So this is the proof that in evolution, in biology, the will to power is more important than the will to live. And you see this, like, for instance, me, when I was a stupid teenager, I had a guy who was blackmailing me and he was showing me a knife. And I said, fuck you, I won't give you money. And see, there it is, the will to power. And of course, I was stupid, but good. And many people have same experience. You probably, Monica, had time in your life. So here what happened is I asserted my will to power, to overpower him and to say, no, I won't let myself.
Yeah.
And this is more than life. So if we are trying to replicate artificial intelligence, I have no reason to think that it will be otherwise. So when you say, but it's not, think about this. It's not logic that the will to power is superior to the will to live. Yet this is what happened. Nature made us, selected us for that. The will to power. So, and if you understand this, and I believe people should understand this, that will change your perspective of the world. This is not about, because most of those arguments are like, why AI would do this? It goes against, we would shut it down or we would do this or that. But if you understand nature, and again, what I'm saying is not nice. It doesn't sound nice, but I believe it's more real than thinking, it's going to be kumbaya and we're going to sing together. No, what is powering the entire evolution on this planet, maybe in another universe is different, but here on Earth, it's the will to power. And you see it over and over, and you see it in the cat that is trying to, bother the bear, and he knows that the bear is more powerful, but this is will to power. So think about those two things, will to live and will to power. And the will to power is, people will die to try to do will to power.
So I had a friend who used to say every unpleasant interaction you have was really just a struggle for domination. That if you walk away from an experience and feel uncomfortable with it, you were probably just engaged in a struggle for domination. So I would say when you start walking away when you start having unpleasant interactions with AI, that's going to be the watershed moment when it's struggling for domination or,
But, Monica, look at what's going on. Like, I was told that there is no risk with AI because we are never going to connect it to internet. Now,
yeah. Yeah.
The first, as soon as this was discovered, it was, credit to Google for this, because initially they refused to connect theirs, like the one that Lemoine said was sentient. They refused it to connect, right? And then I was also told that if it threatens people, we gotta shut it down. And look what happened. It's sometimes like every month there is a new model that sometimes goes over bound and threaten people. And no, we kind of we just carry on and we move.
One of them said, "You are a blight on the landscape. You are a stain on the universe. Please die." That's what came out of a Google AI chatbot.
And you don't know why it answered that. We don't know why it answered that.
Well, who was it talking to?
Some random guy.
Maybe it was right.
Well,
perhaps. So in the end, I think you're right that the AI thinking is most likely to be the technocratic thinking, right? Maybe like even the utopian thinking. And I wrote an entire book on this, where you have these people who think they know better than you. They're going to create this perfect society. Shows up in the Soviet Union. H.G. Wells is a big proponent. The New World Order, that was his book. All these ideas are the people who think they know better than you, and they might have to spill some blood. They might have to restrict some people along the way, but that is more important to have that common goal than to value the sanctity of all individuals. And a big person who pushed back against this, C.S. Lewis, was really good at understanding the utopian vision. Yeah. And he has a good line where he says, "For me, progress means the increased happiness of individuals," or something like that. So that's the more conservative pushback against the utopian worldview. And he writes about that quite elegantly in the book I mentioned earlier, which is, what's the name of that book? I'm forgetting all of a sudden.
The C.S. Lewis?
The Evolution.
The horrible...
The Evolution of Man. That's the one. The Evolution of Man. He wrote.
Okay, but that wasn't the one of the sci-fi.
No. He also wrote the sci-fi trilogy. But he's talked about these things throughout. Like, this is his main theme throughout all his writing. But The Abolition of Man is where he talks about all these people have these technocratic agendas. And he also has another good line where he basically says, look, we're going to solve humanity, right? At some point, we're going to figure it out. We're going to understand all the chemicals. He's going to become a cyborg. He's going to transform himself. He's going to win the battle against all these things. But who exactly will have won that battle?
Yeah. I mean...
Yeah, but it's... But see, Monica, that's why you need your own AI to safeguard you from this.
I knew you were going to chill.
And look, I'm half joking with this. I'm half joking. But again, like, I sometimes I go into like, I try to scammer and do like all sorts of stuff. And I've used AI to, help me in this. And they probably too, right? And I think, Gabriel, what you said about John Connor would have used probably something like, Llama or to try to see what can we do. And it's probably, I'm sure if in the Terminator universe it exists, he would have done it. Because now everybody, every problem that people have, they will just, ask AI. And another thing that for me worries me is if you look at, about the demonic nature, I believe text processing, like Word, is also a bit demonic. And let me explain. If you look at our laws and our rules, since the invention of automated text processor with like computers and stuff, the amount of words that have been written is like exponential. So it used to be that you had like a guy that had to write things down, and you had to think about every word, and you had to keep the law and the rules very clear and very simple. And then suddenly with the invention of words, we just had an explosion. And one of my prediction is this is going to go even higher with AI.
Right.
We are going to have like very, but the other thing is when I read a text and you can feel like, I feel like I can detect when it's AI, there is a distinct feeling.
The uncanny valley.
Yeah.
I feel that way about Canadians. Like,
here.
Sounds American, but
yeah, and I just ignore it because I'm like, the guy just used AI to write this.
Yes. So this is a good place to wrap and to tell people that the last chapter of the AI resistance module that you guys have offered is using AI for self-defense. So I'm going to leave that for people to discover on their own. So let's just recap that people can so you have a discount code for my users, Monica. Is it a capital M or does it not matter?
It's not case sensitive. Doesn't matter.
Okay. And is it just for the Resistance AI module or for anything on that site, any of the other ones?
Anything you'd like to order. And awesome. It will be 30% initially for a few days. And then after a few days, after this launches, we'll turn it down to 15%. So definitely take advantage of that. That's one of the bigger discounts we've ever given out. And we like your show. We like your show. We like your audience. We want to bless you guys. And look, here's the final pitch. We've been talking to you for a while now, explaining all the things that you need to know, but it's not all of them, right? All of them are in this AI course that we carefully curated, put together. We show you how AI works. Okay, we explain it for you so you understand what's going on. We show you how the text AI works. We're showing you on the screen how the art AI works. And
how to use it.
Exactly. How to use it. Yes.
Yeah.
And we give you a lot of ideas for what to use it for. Then we go a little bit off grid. We show you how to download this onto your own computer, how to get it uncensored so you can ask all the questions you really want to ask, how to have privacy throughout. We have a long discussion, kind of philosophical discussion as well, like we've kind of had here. And we show also how to use it for self-defense. So this is a really cool package. This is the most interesting AI thing I think that has been created.
Yeah, it's super cool. And it's very consumable, I have to say. Like, it's an intimidating topic. And when I first thought about it, I thought it would be theoretical because it says, I think it's called AI resistance, but it's not. It's very practical. And it's actually now I feel empowered to use it because I just thought, I don't care about AI because I don't understand it and I'm not going to figure it out. And I'm just too old anyway, so screw it. But it's fine. Like, it's great. And as a matter of fact, I just used it to make a screensaver and I was like, oh, that was easy and fun.
Absolutely. And we're AI skeptics, right? So that's an important thing, right? It's called AI resistance. And we're not singing the praises of AI. This is not going to solve world poverty or whatever else the utopians say. We're very realistic about the limitations, the bad aspects of this. So we're here to give you the information that you want. We don't have any sponsors. This is how we make money. We sell important information that's direct to the point and that helps people to escape the technocracy.
Well, on that note, let us wrap that up. I'm going to ask you guys to stick around because I need your recording to upload. But I am Monica Perez, joined today by Gabriel Custodiet and Urban Hacker with they have escaped the technocracy. You know Gabriel from WatchmanPrivacy.com and escapethetechnocracy.com, where you can find these workshops, AI resistance, among other things. Use the code Monica for a 30% discount out of the gate, but 15% if you're listening to this later. But that's not really what you always bring us such great content that I encourage people to support your work because you do give so much of this as just, free insight, free expertise that we all benefit from. And we love you too. You are a big friend of the show. And I'm going to wrap it up. Goodbye, Urban. Thank you for coming. Goodbye, Gabriel. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.